And Vance Joy's riptide gets quieter as it falls.
This is when it turns into like the horror movie thing.
Whatever the lyrics are, riptide.
What's good? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I am the titular Newest Olympian. I never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid, but I'm doing so now as a 29-year-old man to see if it's a YA series that we've all been sleeping on. But I'm not going on this quest alone. I am joined in person again in the studio by Johnny Frohlichstein. Johnny, how's it going?
It's going really well. Happy to be back.
I'm glad to have you back. Actually, unlike other times when we do back-to-back stuff, time has actually passed.
Wow.
Whoa, this is multiple days later. It's not just a back-to-back recording thing. We've grown in between those times. I don't know if anything monumental has happened. We had a good breakfast this morning.
I went on like one of those Silicon Valley retreats where they, do a bunch of chanting and stuff, and now I'm a new person. That's what I did in the last 3 days.
Both of our baseball teams got eliminated from the wild cards in each league, respectively.
We don't have to talk about that. We're going to talk enough about St. Louis. We don't have to remind me of the baseball team that exists there. Sad.
So we have the rest of chapter 13 to discuss. Where we last left our team, Annabeth revealed she would like to be an architect, and now where we pick it up is Percy laughing and making fun of her for it. Percy laughs and says, "You, an architect?" And narrator Percy says, "I don't know why, but I found it funny. Just the idea of Annabeth trying to sit quietly and draw all day." And this brings us to an important segment that I want to do. I'm going to call my architect wife, Kelly, and see if this is what architects do all day. So let's see if she picks up the phone. Hello?
What's up?
Question. Johnny and I are recording an episode of The Newest Olympian right now. Say hi, Johnny.
Hi.
Can I ask you an architectural correspondent question?
Sure.
Okay. According to Percy, architects just sit quietly and draw all day. Is that what you do as an architect?
I'm not quiet, no.
You're not quiet, but do you draw all day?
I virtually draw the majority of the day.
Okay. So Percy's not wrong. He's just not 100% correct?
Correct.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you very much. You don't have a big drawing table thing like Ted Mosby in How I Met Your Mother?
I actually do have my great-grandfather's table that I need to restore.
But it's in your mom's garage.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Kelly, for lending your architectural expertise to this episode.
You're welcome.
Have a nice one. I love you.
Love you too.
Bye. Cool. So now we know about architecture, Johnny.
Yeah, we learned. I could be one. I could be an architect.
Yeah, you could just sit quietly and draw all day.
Easy.
And when Percy says this, Annabeth blushes. So she really does want to be an architect, which is very cool. She says, quote, "Yes, an architect. Athena expects her children to create things, not just tear them down like a certain god of earthquakes I could mention." Love this. They're perfect together. I love them.
But then Annabeth apologizes for being mean to Percy after saying that, when Percy was way meaner by saying, "You, an architect?" Like, come on. This is like classic male-female dynamic where the woman ends up apologizing. That's what's happening here.
I agree. Percy looks at the churning brown water of the Mississippi, which is not a very nice description. I've never seen the Mississippi, so I don't know if this is accurate.
Churning brown water is extraordinarily accurate.
Oh, no. Okay. But yes, then Annabeth apologizes and says that was mean. And I wrote in my notes, was it? I didn't really think it was.
No. And you know what was mean? Saying, "You, an architect?"
Yes. Incredibly rude. So Percy then offers for the two of them to overcome the Athena and Poseidon rivalry and work together. Percy asks if Athena and Poseidon ever cooperated, and Annabeth says that she guesses so with the chariot. Apparently Athena made it and Poseidon made horses out of crests of waves. I'm sure that this is a more grandiose mythological story that I will talk about with Moya in a future episode, but I like that they've worked together in the past, and I really like Percy trying to bury the hatchet here.
Yeah, I think it's really nice. I think it's quite mature of these two to like get over their parents' little grudge.
So Percy, after Annabeth shares this story, says, quote, "So we can cooperate too, right?" And then after a little bit, Annabeth says that she supposes so. Yes, slightly begrudging answer, but we're here. We're good. So they pull into the Amtrak, spelled properly, station downtown, and the intercom says that there is a 3-hour layover, which sounds rough. I don't know if this is accurate. It could be, but 3 hours feels like a lot, but I guess for the purposes of what happens next in the plot, we needed a 3-hour layover, but I feel like trains usually don't have as long of a layover as flights do.
I wonder if it wasn't like the New Jersey train only went to St. Louis and they're switching trains to go to Denver. That's got to be it. And it's just like the St. Louis to Denver train doesn't leave until 3 hours after the New Jersey train got in.
Right. It could be one of those things where whatever train they took to get into St. Louis, maybe the connection from St. Louis to whatever's going to Denver isn't very popular because all the trains that I've taken go pretty regularly. But no, now that I come to think of it, sometimes, and specifically days of the week, they can be pretty spread out. Like when I was getting the train up to Boston from New York for the live show I was doing, I feel like my options were either 9 a.m. or noon when I was leaving in the morning. So maybe it could be that long.
And I don't know about the Northeast, but trains in the Midwest are late 100% of the time. So it could be like a delayed ass train too.
Oh no, Northeast is pretty good.
That's what it seems like.
The thing that happens, I will say from my experience, is that if I'm ever freaking out and rushing and sweating and running to a train, it will be delayed by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, basically long enough where I didn't need to rush and be all stressed out about it. But if I get there early, the train leaves on time.
Wow.
It's like the classic, I packed an umbrella, now it doesn't rain. Oh, I didn't bring my umbrella, now it's going to rain. That's me, but with rushing to trains.
Got it. Yep. Understood. It's cosmic.
So Grover wants food. Annabeth says, come on, Goat Boy, sightseeing. And I guess Goat Boy is becoming Annabeth's seaweed brain, but for Grover. So I feel a little less weird. I talked earlier in an earlier episode about how I feel like satyrs are getting put down unnecessarily. In this book, feels like it happens in other fantasy where, this certain group of people is not good enough for our human standards, so we're going to put them down. I just wish he had a different nickname for him because Goat Boy feels a bit demeaning, if you will.
My stupid little headcanon is that it's like, Michael Jordan, like GOAT, like greatest of all time boy, and that she's being really sweet.
That's good, and we should start using that to talk about Grover. He is the GOAT, but the greatest of all time.
Bingo.
Or the Grover of all travels.
The GOAT of all tales. Got that.
Now, because it's 3 people, 2 boys and a girl going sightseeing in a city in the Midwest, the only thing I could think of is the montage from Ferris Bueller's Day Off where they do a bunch of fun stuff in Chicago, but they do a bunch of fun things in St. Louis. She says that this may be her only chance to ride to the top of the Gateway Arch, and Percy and Grover are confused. And I was confused as well. We will later learn that my confusion was not Percy and Grover's confusion. My confusion was, I didn't think you could go up the arch because my brain said it's curved.
It is curved, and you can definitely go up in it. And the elevator ride, as is described later, is horribly uncomfortable. It is not a pleasant. It is herky-jerky, and you're in there with 15 people in a room the size of like a car, and it's horrible, and it's the worst part of the arch. But yes, you can go up in it, and the fact that it's curved was not a hurdle tall enough for St. Louis to not go up in there.
So Grover says that he's in as long as there is a snack bar without monsters, which is great. Love that he has to clarify that. His priorities are in check. So they go through the underground museum to the arch, and Percy describes it as being, quote, filled with junk from the 1800s. I love how anti-museum Percy is. It's very funny.
So the museum beneath the arch is actually so cool. So it's a museum entirely devoted to Lewis and Clark, which the whole mythos and manifest destiny component of the Lewis and Clark story is obviously, in retrospect, very messed up. But the museum is amazing. They have all of these very cool like journals from their trip out west and firsthand accounts and things like that. It is a sweet museum. Lewis and Clark growing up in St. Louis was like, I think a way bigger deal than like anywhere else. Like we like did a musical in elementary school about Lewis and Clark. Like,
well, it is St. Louis. Spelled differently.
Well,
spelled differently.
Yeah, it's spelled differently. But they left from there, and that's sort of what the arch indicates anyways. That's why it's the monument. So yeah, Lewis and Clark, big deal as a kid growing up in St. Louis. I imagine you probably got like 5-10 minutes of Lewis and Clark content in your elementary school education.
Well, I feel like we got a good chunk, at least a full chapter about it at some point in U.S. history.
We got a lot more about Lewis and Clark than we did about the slave trade.
Oh, I mean, that's just the education system, baby.
Yeah. Oy.
If U.S. history class was actually honest about some of the shortcomings of America, I would have found it way more interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I would have been much more intrigued by a history class that was, hey, look at all the stuff we messed up and we're trying to not ever do again. Because that was always the resounding thing that parents would tell me when I asked, what's the point of doing a history class. People would say, oh, it's so that we can learn from our past mistakes. But all my textbooks ever did was say America's the best place in the world, and we won every war ever, and any war that we lost, oh, let's just not talk about it. And I feel like if they said, hey, look at all of this stuff we've messed up and we're trying to fix, it'd be way more productive.
Perhaps the fact that our history is so nationalist in hindsight is the reason that we're not learning from these past mistakes and are making them all again right now.
Right. It's twofold. I would find that class more interesting, and then also it would do a better civic good in that we would say, wait, we did what in the 1800s? We did what in the 1950s? It'd be so, please, accurate history classes. Is that too much to ask? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Anyway, Percy Jackson. So Annabeth starts to go into the history of how the arch was built. Grover is passing Percy jelly beans, and that keeps Percy happy in the museum. I'm also glad that we have both now each said the different pronunciation of museum/museum, because I have no idea what's correct. I was laughed at on stage in an improv show in Seattle for, I believe, saying museum, but I kind of go back and forth between saying them, sometimes even saying a hybrid. So I still don't 100% know which one is right, but I feel like out of caution, I say museum and I kind of overpronounce it now because I did have 150 people laugh at me in Seattle.
Museum. It's museum. It's doing the thing where it's not a word anymore.
It's not, no.
Museum.
It's even spelled weird. How does U and E even go next to each other phonetically? Yeah.
I'm going to like faint. This is going to like break I'm going to short circuit. I have a fun fact about how the arch was built.
Let me lay it on me, baby.
So they built it, from both sides going up to meet in the middle. That's how they built it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't actually know if this is true, but it's definitely like St. Louis folklore that
Keanu Reeves was in a bus that had to go over 50 miles an hour.
That Keanu Reeves, how did you know what I was going to say? No. So apparently they like did all the calculations for what the last piece at the top was going to have to like look like and how it was going to fit and how they were going to build it. And like the guy who hand did the calculations on his piece of paper lost the piece of paper, and they had to delay like another like X amount of months to like let him do the calculations. I have no idea if that's true, but it's like deep in St. Louis folklore that that's true.
Wow.
I know.
I like that. That's fun. I hope it's true. So Percy asks Grover if he smells anything, and Grover says that underground air always smells like monsters, so it's probably nothing. And at this moment, I thought, nope. This is horrible. This is a terrible idea. This has gone from fun montage of sightseeing to there's going to be a fight scene. And that's exactly what happens.
Wow,
so,
big smart guy over here picking up on the children's book foreshadowing.
Look at me, 29-year-old man is outsmarting a book that is targeted for people 17 years his youth. What is it? 17 years his... What's
Junior.
the opposite? Oh, I was going to say, what's the opposite of 17 years his senior? I was like, it's not 17
years his youth.
I was thinking, it's not 17 years his prior. It's not 17 years his sophomore. Percy, of all people, has a feeling that they shouldn't be there. That should be the reddest of flags ever. Percy then asks, doesn't Hades have a hat like Annabeth's? And Annabeth clarifies that yes, he has a helm of darkness. She explains that it's Hades' symbol of power, and Annabeth says that she saw it by him at the Winter Solstice Council meeting. Percy was shocked that Hades was there. I was shocked too, and Annabeth says that it is the only time that he is allowed on Olympus, and it's the darkest day of the year. Of course! Of course!
It is.
But Annabeth starts to say that his is much more powerful than her hat. And Grover jumps in and says that it allows him to become darkness, which is very scary, but also in line with the Hades power-up in Hades the video game. So each of the gods has a symbol of power that they give to your player, your character that you play as Zagreus, and then you can get different power-ups from the gods. And Hades' which might even be called the Helm of Darkness, lets you become invisible. You kind of poof into a shadow, and then the bad guys can't see you. And I want to say Hades/you, or both, say darkness before you do it, as if you are a Kingdom Hearts character.
I gotta play this game. This game sounds great.
It's really good. It's a good time, and I feel like they should start cutting me royalty checks because I have mentioned it every episode.
He looked at his wrist, for those at home. He looked at his wrist like he was checking the time, and then he said every episode. What's going on?
It's a bit that I always do, especially when I'm not wearing a watch, like I am not wearing one right now. Grover continues, quote, he can melt into shadow or pass through walls. He can't be touched or seen or heard. And he can radiate fear so intense, it can drive you insane or stop your heart. Why do you think all rational creatures fear the dark? I like this as a way for kids to maybe not be afraid or not feel ashamed of being afraid of the dark. But man, that sounds pretty scary. And it gets even scarier when Percy asks, how do we know he's not here right now watching us? And Grover says, we don't. Which is... it's so chilling. That is chilling.
Yeah, it's good.
And then Percy says, quote, thanks, that makes me feel a lot better. Got any blue jelly beans left? Which, of course, he would want the blue ones. So Percy is starting to get his jumpy nerves in order, and then they see the elevator. And Percy doesn't like confined spaces. I also am claustrophobic, so I appreciate this. I don't like a confined space. I've had a panic attack once when I was a kid going to a Yankee game. We tried to go to Monument Park, and we went down in the old Yankee Stadium. There was this narrow hallway, and the ceiling wasn't very tall, and I was maybe 9, 10. I wasn't able to explain what was happening. I was just telling my dad, I don't like this, and I was with my friend Josh and his dad, and everyone was just super cool, and we left, and I felt really bad, and my dad explained it to me later, but yeah, it's not fun, and I've never been a big confined spaces boy.
That's such a sweet little story. I would imagine all of your, young middle school friends being like, oh, come on, like, let's go see the Monuments Park or whatever. That's so sweet of them. But I will know now not to take you up in the arch when you visit St. Louis, because the description in the book is quite accurate.
I think I'm good now. It was just as a kid, I didn't like, if we played football, I didn't like being in the bottom of a dog pile. Where we used to go swimming at the pool in New Jersey, there was a big hill that people would like roll up into towels and then roll down the hill. Didn't like that. I didn't like being in the tight space there. But I think I'm okay now. I haven't really been in an uncomfortable tight space. But yeah, aside from the really bad experience I had in Yankee Stadium, that was really it in terms of not having a good time. But, wasn't a fan of confined spaces as a kid, so I can relate to Percy here.
So speaking of confined spaces in St. Louis, I got to go here. Mm-hmm. One of the best parts about St. Louis is a museum called the City Museum.
Okay.
And all it is 4 floors worth of like playgrounds and caves, basically, and it's indoors.
Oh, that's cool.
And then there's like an outdoor component that has all sorts of stuff you can climb on, but it's like literally just like a big labyrinth in 4 stories, and it's amazing.
Sounds
and it's for
fantastic.
kids, but they also have like adult nights where you can go and like drink and stuff and like play, more like adulty hide and seek. It's very, very good.
That sounds like a blast. So anyway, with the elevator here, I knew they were actually going up it. And this is when I realized, this is a legitimate thing. It's not just what I thought, which was a Greek god that mortals couldn't see flying you up. And I thought Grover and Percy's confusion was them not knowing it was a thing, but actually it's them just being surprised Annabeth wants to do something touristy. At this point, I wondered, is the elevator curved? And basically, yes. So they get pushed in with, unfortunately, the narrator describes this person as, quote, a big fat lady, which just feels unnecessarily fatphobic here. Narrator Percy mentions that her chihuahua must be a seeing eye chihuahua, since the guards didn't say anything about it, which I think is pretty funny, especially for 2005, which is I know some people, and I won't put them on blast, but I know people who have dogs that are certainly not therapy dogs, that they have gotten their dogs registered as therapy dogs so that they can get them on planes and stuff. And I don't know how rampant this is in the pet community, but I do not like that is a trend. I don't know if that was also a thing in 2005, but I just think the concept of a seeing eye chihuahua is funny because I would imagine chihuahuas are not traditionally used as seeing eye dogs.
No, definitely not. And also, like, a seeing eye dog, you need to sort of feel the way that it pulls. And I feel like a chihuahua couldn't pull hard enough to, like, make you understand which way to go. As to your point, one of Anna Grace, one of my partner's friends, was moving to Los Angeles and was flying out there. And to take her dog, she was like, yeah, I just Googled like how to get my dog to be a therapy dog and found some link to a psychologist that'll just sign a paper and you can do it. It's super easy, apparently.
I don't like that because it waters down people who actually need those dogs, because I feel like now the colloquial thing or a lot of things people will assume when you see a dog is, they don't actually need that dog, which for some people it's true, but for other people, no, they depend on it. So it stinks, whether it is seeing eye or therapy, comfort, whatever it is. I don't like that people have used it as a way to save some money on flights because it kind of waters down the people who are actually using it for the purpose intended.
I'm totally with you. And this is bringing to mind a story that one time I went to an Olive Garden after a day of playing Frisbee. And
woof.
Yeah.
Poor decision.
Well, after a day of Frisbee, you've been running around for 8 hours. It's kind of the best because you have the unlimited breadsticks and you can just kind of go nuts. But we go in there and we'd all sort of had a few drinks at this point. And there's a woman in there with a monkey on her shoulder. And we're like, oh my God, what? And so being our college selves, we all walked up to her and asked if we could pet the monkey. And she was like, no, this is a therapy monkey. And didn't say another word. And then we were like, what? What? There's so much to unpack here.
Incredible.
I know.
Probably an awesome monkey. So the lady, who is described by narrator Percy as the fat lady, not great, asks, quote, no parents? get out, run away. Come on. That is such a weird question. That is such a weird question to ask. That is certainly her trying to weed out if you are the people that she is after. No good. The description, not any better. Quote, she had beady eyes, pointy, coffee-stained teeth, a floppy denim hat, get out of there, and a denim dress that bulged so much she looked like a blue jean blimp. Not loving the fat-phobic descriptions here. We've gone pretty far without that happening, but aside from that, denim hat, get out, denim hat, leave. I've never seen a denim hat ever.
I was going to say, is that even like a sort of like trucker thing? I don't know that I've ever heard of or seen I can't even really picture a denim hat.
I don't know if it's a denim floppy hat like she's at the Kentucky Derby. I don't know if it's a denim baseball cap, dad hat. No idea. But denim hat? I guess it was 2005 though, so anything is fair game.
If I'm ever posh enough to go to the Kentucky Derby, I'm wearing a floppy denim hat.
I will do the same. And we'll bet all the money on the horse with the silliest name and we'll lose.
Yep.
Annabeth, in a very tongue-in-cheek way, says they're below, scared of heights, which aren't they underground right now?
No, I think at this point they're in the car. They're in the
elevator. Okay. I was like, wait a second, I'm confused. But yeah, this is... Whether Annabeth meant this or not, it could be a tongue-in-cheek way to say that Percy's mom is in the underworld. Like, they're below, you know?
I thought it was just a deft way of her saying, we have parents, they're just not with us.
Gotcha,
I thought she was just being really smart.
She was giving one of those vague answers where I haven't lied to you, I just haven't told the full truth kind of thing. Okay, yeah. But then Denim Lady says, oh, the poor darlings. And then the Chihuahua growls, and she says, calm down, Sonny. And Percy says, oh, is that his name? And I, reading this, immediately knew no, because the S was lowercase. But she says no, and the narrator Percy says, quote, as if that cleared everything up. At this point, I did not like this. Evil person, evil dog, not a good combination. We'll soon learn what's going on. So when they get to the top, Percy is not super stoked because the area up there is another confined space. And now I turn to you, resident St. Louis expert. Is his description here correct? Because he says it's cramped, he says the view isn't that good, and he feels not only confined, but also confined 600 feet up in the air, which is the only thing worse than being confined.
It's not super cramped, and they sort of manage it so that there's not too many people up there at one time. I think it's fairly pleasant up there. Apparently, though, the arch is built because it's so tall at like one of those buildings where if it's windy, it'll sway.
Oh, and so, because it has to have the give for structural integrity.
And I've talked to people who have been up there when it was particularly windy, and they said it was like the worst experience of their life. Even though obviously the arch isn't going to come toppling down. It's just like you're up there and you're like, oh my goodness, literally this structure is swaying. As for the view to the Illinois side is just pretty bleak because that's East St. Louis, and that's a really rundown, impoverished area. And there's a lot of history behind that, too, that's obviously really messed up that we don't have to get into. But the view of the St. Louis side is pretty good. Like, you can see Busch Stadium where the Cardinals play, and it's very pretty. And you can sort of see out into, like, the sort of outskirts and suburbs. So I think the view is like a 6 out. Like, if you come to St. Louis, we're not going to go up in the arch if we have 3 days.
Yeah, we talked about this in the last episode and compared it to the Space Needle. The advantage of the Space Needle is now, after renovations, the whole thing does it now. They at least have a rotating restaurant where inside it rotates so you get the view. I don't know if the observation deck does that. I know they did renovations on it to make the lights on it differently, but I don't know if the whole thing spins too.
I went to dinner at that restaurant when I was there for work with our work team, which I would not have gone there without a work team.
Because it's ludicrously expensive.
Yeah, and it's a Wolfgang puck. And,
boo! That sucks so that sucks so much.
And more like Wolfgang Suck. And and
more like Wolfgang charge you too much of a buck.
Where was I?
More like Wolfgang chuck this food out the window. It's not that good.
Wow, lots of words rhyme with puck, including chuck and buck and suck.
And one other that we're not mentioning on this family-friendly podcast.
But sitting there for like 4 hours, you get to we got like 4 or 5 rotations over the course of it. And that was very cool as a part of that dinner. The food, forgettable, but the view, very nice.
Yeah, it does rotate slow enough where you don't feel dizzy, which is nice.
All.
It's one of those, if you keep looking, you may not notice it, but if you look down and then you look up, you go, oh, wow, that's different.
Right.
Like when you're trying to upload something and the thing is going really slowly. Shout out to me and everyone else who does the thing where you put your mouse right on the thing to see if it's actually going past it, if the progress bar is moving. So Annabeth is critiquing how she would have built the arch differently, which I think is very funny because it is just an arch. I don't really know what you can do besides make it.
You can't change it. It's perfect.
So people are starting to take elevator carts down because the deck is closing. Annabeth and Grover get into a car down, but Percy can't go because it's full. And they offer to get out and then go on the next one with him. But Percy feels bad because it's going to mess up the whole flow of the line and mess up everything else. I love that he's being a selfless king here, but terrible idea. And also, you're not really inconvenienced. I don't know. Are the elevators that slow that it's really going to make that big of a deal?
They're pretty slow.
Okay.
But, Percy, have you read a book before? Do you know what happens when the group splits up? Come on.
So he says, no, you guys just go, I'll wait. This, I feel like, is a mistake on Groover as a searcher/protector. You gotta get out of there, man. You can't let him do this. So all that is left at this point is the park ranger who is helping people into the elevator, one family, and then Percy and Denim Lady. So again, it feels like if the two of them stepped out, couldn't they have all fit in the elevator? I don't know what the capacity limit is. But at this point, I was getting a little suspicious of the park ranger as well. I was thinking, is the park ranger in on it? Are these other two family members in on it? Is this an ambush? What's going on? So Grover and Annabeth look nervous, but they stay put, and then the cart goes down. I'm not feeling great about this.
It kind of reminds me of the situations where you're with a friend and you're trying to get on the train, and then like the friend doesn't get on, and you get on, and the door's closing, and you're like, and then you can't text because you're underground, and it's like the worst.
Too real. So it's just Percy, a little boy with his parents, the park ranger, and then the denim dog lady. Narrator Percy says, quote, I smiled uneasily at the fat lady. She smiled back, her forked tongue flickering between her teeth. And then narrator Percy continues, wait a minute, forked tongue? And I am just pacing with my book at this point because this is so not good. You were in the room when I was reading this book, and I was screaming things in my book.
Yeah, you were like, what?
I was just like, what? No, what do you, get at it now. So the dog starts yapping at Percy. The parents pull their kid away from the dog. And then Denim Lady says, quote, well, son, if you insist. And that's just a big nope. That is a huge, huge nope for me. And then Percy turns to the lady and asks, did you call that chihuahua your son? And then the Denim Lady says, Chimera, dear, not a chihuahua. It's an easy mistake to make. Don't like this.
I do empathize with the lady here as someone who calls my dog frequently my beautiful son.
Shout out to Dodger. Maybe that will be the picture for this episode on the Instagram. Send me your best Dodger picture.
Oh, I have so many.
But then we get the classic thing, and this line is perfect too, because it's such that moment where the villain says some sort of dramatic line and then undergoes a big transformation. So she rolls up her sleeves and she has scaly skin. Her teeth are fangs. Her eyes have sideways slits, like a reptile. The chihuahua grows with each bark, and it gets to a lion-sized beast, and then it roars. Hello and welcome to the Lightning Brief. First thing I wanted to talk about here is that the first season of Modern Muckraker, a podcast that I helped create with a whole bunch of wonderful human beings, is now complete. You can listen to all 4 episodes at modernmuck.com. I've talked about it a bit on this show, but it is a comedic investigative journalism show poking fun at your standard investigative journalism show by nature of answering incredibly silly, specific pop culture questions, but treating them like they are very serious. So episode 3, for example, is how many IHOP locations can you visit and eat free pancakes at during one National Free Pancake Day? And episode 4 is if you lost half of an orchestra, what remaining instruments would produce the worst possible sound? I'm very biased, but I think it's a very good show and you should listen to it right now. Again, you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts by searching Modern Muckraker or going to modernmuck.com. Also, I would like to thank the folks who are supporting The Newest Olympian on Patreon. If you go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon, you can support the show and get access to a bunch of bonus content. One subset of bonus content is director's commentary audio, where I talk about making the episodes, what is to come. So if you want some inside scoop about future guests on the show, future plans, when I figure things out like merch and stuff like that, you can hear those by joining our team over at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. I'd first like to thank our newest Mega God patron, Megan Baker, our newest Super God patron, Leela Pedersen, and our newest God tier patrons, Sandkopf, Marta Silva Carvalho, Helene Schott, Kel Hunter, Alexis Monacal, Juiced Backer, Rachel Emerson, and Iris Jickstra. And now for our penultimate 50-chunk demigod patron reading. Next episode should be the last one. We've made our way through the backlog. Again, what a wonderful problem to have that so many people supported the show. I had to break it up across many, many episodes. But shout out to Catherine Barbera, Myra, Elsa L, Cassidy Carter, Lucille R, Mad Stratton, Shetchishez, Strikeholtz Shacktelchen, Anna West, Lily Lesh, Ruth Redmond, Angie Lee, Thunderbird Rising, Danny Nicole, Liam Jenkins, Andrew Bauer, Christina Cook, Adam Trace, Sigrid Wink, Jess Eisenberg, Grace Galelli, Marcia, Demuthu J, Inge Coyle, Melissa Budenich, Cranky Auntie, Sonia Immerman, Rachel Murdy, Batman for President, Matt Shreby, Tia Banerjee, Sandra Nickel, Connor Johnson, Carrie Copa, Nerdy Bookworm, Senta Morgan, Vin, Quinn Rose, Z Jasmine D. Diego, Lydia Jackson, Sifa Lexon, Audrey Renaud, and Chris Crafty. And finally, a name correction for Jaylene Torres and Agnieszka Wildla-Zuska. Thanks again for supporting the show, and thanks to Multitude for having us as a part of the collective. There's a whole bunch of Multitude podcasts out there. If you want to listen to a new one different from the newest Olympian, you could listen to Spirits, especially if you like the mythological elements of PJO. Spirits is a history and comedy podcast focused on everything folklore, mythology, and the occult, told through the lens of feminism, queerness, and modern adulthood. Each week, mythology buff Julia and her childhood best friend Amanda get together to learn about a different story from mythology and folklore over drinks. They've done some over some Greek gods in the past. They are currently doing different folks, like they did one about Artemis, I believe. They've done an Apollo episode, so if you like Greek stuff, you should check it out. They also do very fun urban legend episodes, and the editor of the show, Eric Schneider, gets in the mix. Very fun stuff. There's over 250 episodes posted, so huge back catalog you can listen to at spiritspodcast.com, or just search for Spirits wherever you listen to your podcasts. And finally, before we go, just a word from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a podcaster as a full-time job. Some of the ads will be read by me, some of them won't. The ones that are not read by me are added locally, so if you live in Canada, don't be surprised if you hear a Canadian ad. It would still be in English, but maybe the website would be .ca, I'm guessing. And once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of the newest Olympian. So the Ranger and the family are real people because they are frozen in fear, so I do not need to be suspicious of them anymore. But the Chimera is described as having the head of a lion with a blood-caked mane, the body and hooves of a giant goat, and a serpent for a tail, a 10-foot-long diamondback growing right out of its shaggy behind. So, like, not even just a snake tail, but like, tail is a giant snake. Don't like that at all.
Yeah, when I read this, I don't think I was being particularly active about like imagining what it looked like. And now that you're talking me through it, I'm like, ugh, this is like bona fide spooky.
Super spooky. And I know what chimeras look like from other mythological representations that I've seen in other media. And yeah, usually pretty terrifying. Now, the rhinestone dog collar is still around its neck, and the plate-sized dog tag was now very easy to read. And it says, quote, Chimera, rabid, fire-breathing, poisonous. If found, please call Tartarus, extension 954. That's very funny, but also what's the first part of the phone number?
yeah, wait. You're right. You can't have an extension without a number. It's like having a hand without an arm.
Ha! I guess the thought is if anyone sees this thing in Chimera form and can actually see it, they know the Tartarus phone number by heart, maybe? Or maybe it's 1-800-TARTARUS. I'm not really sure.
It's 867-5309.
So Percy doesn't have Riptide out, but doesn't want to move because the Chimera will lunge at him if he makes any sudden movement. The Snake Lady then hisses, quote, be honored, Percy Jackson. Lord Zeus rarely allows me to test a hero with one of my brood, for I am the mother of monsters, the terrible Echidna. And at this point, I was very worried and scared because this isn't an evil person. Truly, Zeus sent this person. And then I realized, oh, they're 600 feet in the air. They're in the sky. They're in Zeus's domain. Feels a little strange that she was able to start underground in the elevator and go up, so they weren't in the sky, but maybe Zeus knew they were going to the sky, and then it was fair game, or maybe the sky isn't in play, it's just Zeus sending someone to attack Percy, but I'm not a Zeus fan. I hope Zeus gets a stern talking to.
I like the inversion here of like Zeus is sort of traditionally like the good guy, you know, and here he's like, no, like Zeus is also very much against our hero here.
Mm-hmm. Which is more accurate for the Greek mythological representations of Zeus as opposed to things like Hercules, the movie. So Percy then stares at her, and all he could think to say was, isn't that a kind of anteater? And I was thinking, similarly, when you say Echidna, I first think of Knuckles from Sonic, because he's Knuckles the Echidna. And this really strikes a nerve with the Denim Lady, because she howls in rage and then says, quote, I hate it when people say that. I hate Australia, naming that ridiculous animal after me. For that, Percy Jackson, my son shall destroy you. So that was the straw that broke the Denim Lady camel back. But that is very funny, because I'm assuming an Echidna is nowhere near as terrifying as this lady.
Certainly not. It's just, you're so right. It's funny that like that was the straw that broke the Echidna's back here in terms of her getting mad. Like, what was she going to do before that? Like, take him out for ice cream? Or
wasn't the Chimera already going to tear him to shreds?
Yeah.
So the Chimera attacks, and Percy dodges the bite. He is now near the family and the ranger, and he feels compelled to keep them safe. He uncaps Riptide, which, gosh, what a cool name, and runs to the other side of the observation deck away from the family. Great hero instinct. And he yells at the Chimera to get its attention and to keep it away from the family.
I like the idea that all of the fight scenes in Percy Jackson are accompanied by Vance Joy's Riptide, like that song, because it so doesn't fit.
It's pretty good. I like when songs don't fit fight scenes. It's always very funny.
Yep.
So then it shoots a flame column at Percy, a huge column of flames. And Percy barely dives away, and then it just blazes a hole in the arch, which sounds very scary.
I wept when I read this.
And then narrator Percy says, "Great, I thought. We just blowtorched a national monument." Percy is then able to slash the neck of the Chimera with Riptide, and I thought that this was good. But narrator Percy continues, "That was my fatal mistake. The blade sparked harmlessly off the dog collar. I tried to regain my balance, but I was so worried about defending myself against the fiery lion's mouth, I completely forgot about the serpent tail until it whipped around and sank its fangs into my calf." And that sounds rough.
Feels like the worst place to get bitten by a snake with big teeth is in the calf. There's just like a lot for it to sink into. Ugh.
Yeah, not great. And then the Chimera grabs Percy by the ankle mid-jab attempt, and Riptide goes flying out of the hole in the arch downward towards the Mississippi River.
And Vance Joy's Riptide gets quieter as it falls.
This is when it turns into like the horror movie thing, where it's the even more acoustic version of the song, and it's slowed down to half speed. So it's going down slowly, and it's baby.
Whatever the lyrics are, Riptide.
Shout out to the 4 months during my sophomore year of college when I unironically knew all the words of that song because I thought it was good. And then I got out of that phase real quickly. Once Mumford & Sons released their second album and I realized every song was the same, I lost out on that entire genre, except for the Avett Brothers, who are fantastic and great. And if you ever get the chance to see them live, do it. They put on a phenomenal live show.
Can confirm.
So good. Gosh. Percy at this point believes he's absolutely screwed. He's got no weapon, and he can feel the poison rising up to his chest. I was worried that a diamondback would be a poisonous snake. I'm not a snake expert by any means. When you say diamondback, I think Arizona Diamondbacks, the baseball team, and that's it. And then I think about how the Game 7 broken bat single shouldn't have actually counted because Mariano Rivera broke the bat of Luis Gonzalez, so the 2001 World Series should have a big ol' asterisk over it. But yeah, confirmed poisonous snake, not great. Percy remembers that Riptide, and he says the official name, Anaklusmos, would return to him. And at this point, I remembered, right, this is a thing. But he doesn't feel it in his pocket, and he thinks maybe it's too far. Maybe it only returns when it's in pen form. And narrator Percy says, I didn't know, and I wasn't going to live long enough to figure it out. And normally, you could be nervous, but this is chapter 13 of book 1 of 5. Feel like he's going to be okay. Though, wouldn't it be wild if they killed Percy Jackson halfway through the first book?
It'd be like if Harry just got murked by the troll in the bathroom and that was it.
And now I'm the main character, Hermione.
It would be better.
Or I guess maybe Neville would now by de facto become. Now it's me, Neville.
There's a fanfic here.
So the lady chuckles, quote, they don't make heroes like they used to, son? Which, boo.
Echidna is top tier villain here. I love this line. They don't make heroes like they used to, son. Oh, that's so good.
So Percy looks at the family and feels the need to protect them. Percy, as the narrator says, I couldn't just die. And I like that he's got the hero instincts here. But Percy has no idea what to do, and he admits to being scared on top of all the other disadvantages that he is faced with in terms of giant monster, no weapon, poison, all that stuff. I like that he is honest with his emotions. And I think it's good for kids reading this book that the hero can say, I wasn't feeling great about this. I think that's nice. Mm-hmm. Percy then wonders, quote, if I died, would the monsters go away? Would they leave the humans alone? Which, selfless King Percy, love it. And then the echidna hisses and says, if you are the son of Poseidon, you would not fear water. Jump, Percy Jackson. Show me that water will not harm you. I also believe Denim Lady probably has a really southern accent, so and like hissing in southern. So maybe like, if you're the son of Poseidon, you would not fear water. Jump, Percy Jackson. Show me that water will not harm you. Jump and retrieve your sword. Prove your bloodline. And when she said this, I thought, hey, good idea, villain. Thanks.
Yeah, this is very weird of the villain to do. First of all, I love your southern echidna. And that's for sure canon. I don't know. The whole like, bet you won't, like, what are the odds you jump? And they do like the odds game. That's what this feels like. Like, you will not jump into that water. You will not.
But also for Percy, who has just realized, I can't fight these two combined things with no weapon. Yeah, that's a great idea, and maybe Percy wouldn't have thought of it. His only other thought was, maybe I should sacrifice myself and leave the humans alone. Now he at least has something he could do.
You're right. Literally, it's like teacher during quiz being like, the answer to number 4 is D.
Oh my goodness. So narrator Percy says, quote, yeah, right, I thought. I'd read somewhere that jumping into water from a couple of stories up was like jumping onto solid asphalt. From here, I'd splatter on impact. And that's correct. And I did think at this point, never mind, bad idea. But also, son of Poseidon, maybe you get to thwart those rules. So maybe still a good idea. Also, what are your alternatives? You cannot punch the Chimera to death. It can shoot columns of flame. Maybe jump and see what happens.
And if you go, not a bad way to go.
So the snake lady then starts to taunt that Percy is screwed and has no faith, and she says the poison is now in Percy's heart. And that could be literal or figurative or both, because Percy feels the doubt, but he also does feel the poison inside of him. But then he looks at the water and remembers his father's warm glow. He believes that his father must have seen him despite what Sally told him. And he really feels confident that his dad visited him when he was in the cradle. Percy then also thinks of the green swirling trident that Poseidon sent down to claim Percy with, to display over his head to say, this is my son and I love him, hopefully. And Percy is feeling good about this, but then immediately not feeling so good because the Mississippi River is not the sea. And I guess Poseidon is the god of the sea, not the god of the water, but it feels like technicality, like it would stretch. Come on, you know, like he still had water powers when he poured water over his head or was in a creek. So I feel like any water is going to be good for Percy here. So I think it's okay. He identifies as the narrator that this is the Mississippi River. It's the dead center of the United States. There was no sea god here, so not close to any ocean, but I still feel like you're going to be okay, right?
It's quite the thought process that he went through in this like split second, deciding whether or not he should jump out of the St. Louis Arch.
100%. The echidna then says, "Da, faithless one," and the Chimera then sends a column of fire towards Percy's face, so he really has no choice here. Percy then prays and says, "Father, help me." And he turns and jumps. And Percy, as the narrator says, quote, "My clothes on fire, poison coursing through my veins, I plummeted towards the river." And that's the end of this chapter and the end of what we will cover on this episode of The Newest Olympian. Quite a cliffhanger. And speaking of cliffhangers, I do have a surprise for you. But Johnny, how are you feeling about the remainder of this chapter and where we're at in the story?
I don't envy you because you had to stop reading right here.
And I know. I have not read past
I know what
this.
happens. I know exactly what happens. And I'm not going to tell you. But yeah, wow, what a place to end.
Yes, but before we go, I have a very special surprise for Johnny and then also you, the listener at home. Recently, we did a bunch of live shows for Potter List, and Johnny joined me for 2 of those shows. We did a show in Grand Rapids, and we did a show in Chicago. And when we did the show in Chicago, we did a Q&A section at the end, and someone sent in an email, and they said, "Hey, can I buy you a shot of Malort?" And I said, "What's Malort?" And then people started to describe it to me. And I think I have been confirmed now that Malort is a liquor that does exist in Europe. And I've had it when I was in Germany and it was really good. But the Chicago Malort apparently is terrible and apparently is very disgusting, but also is like this Chicago rite of passage where they make it locally and people love it. Do you want to explain Malort more from your experience?
So I didn't know it existed until I was a young adult visiting Chicago for the first time. My friend was like, "Oh, we got to have Malort." And I was like, "Is it good?" And he was like, "No, but you got to have it. It's like our thing. You know, it's the Chicago's thing." And on Wikipedia, I think the description is something along the lines of like, it tastes like burnt gasoline in a rubber glove or something. So that's, I think, what we're about to be in for.
So I want to give a shout out to Christina Albrecht, who's the original person who offered to buy me a shot of it. And then, unfortunately, the venue that we were at did not carry Malort because it was a classy venue. And I guess Malort was beneath them. I was excited to do it because I've never seen such a divided reaction where people were on extreme ends of the spectrum. Half of the crowd was very excited at this prospect. Full 10, yes, you got to do it. The other half was, do not do this. It's the worst thing in the world. So I am very intrigued, but I want to get my full Chicago experience. So shout out to Christina who offered it, but then also shout out to Zoe Previtt, who actually sent a bottle of Chicago Malort to the studio, and I've not tried it yet. So now I'm going to go out real quick, grab it, and then we're each going to do a shot of Malort here at 12:54 p.m. on a Saturday. And you're going to get forever in audio my potentially visceral reaction to baby's first Malort.
Oh, this is so incredible.
So this is Jeppson's Malort liqueur. Carl Jeppson Company, Chicago, United States of America. 35% alcohol. It's 70 proof. On the back it says, Jeppson's Malort has the aroma and full-bodied flavor of an unusual botanical. Its bitter taste is savored by two-fisted drinkers. I do not know if that is a glowing review.
I'm honestly surprised the label didn't say tastes like burnt gasoline in a rubber glove.
So yeah, let's crack open this bad boy.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad.
I still have water to... Okay, I have water. Do you have water to chase this with?
Nope.
Do you want to grab your water?
Nope.
Okay. All righty. Get all that sweet ASMR. All right, I'm going to smell it. Oh, that... I mean, it smells very alcohol-y. Like, this just smells like mouthwash, basically.
Don't taste like it.
I'm going to do the tiniest. Okay, I'm just doing I filled just a little bit. I'll pour this one really close to the microphone because the audio sounded kind of cool. Interesting.
It's pungent.
This bottle's so big, too.
Oh, yeah.
So much left.
You're going to have that bottle for the rest of your life. Because you're never going to drink this again.
Oh, God. All right.
Wait. We got to take video.
Okay. My goodness. All right. You got the video going?
Oh, I got the video going.
All right. Cheers, bud. Ooh. I mean, it's not the worst, but it's getting worse.
And we did not have anywhere close to a full shot.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm not going to throw up, but I want to rinse my mouth out really badly. I feel like it's not. Have you ever had aquavit before?
No.
It kind of tastes like if aquavit went bad. The shot itself wasn't bad. The lingering taste afterwards is horrible.
Yeah.
That's the roughest part.
We'll talk about it in 2 hours when it's like still there.
Oh no, I'm going to brush my teeth. Okay, well, Johnny, thank you so much for being my guest here and sharing baby's first Malort with me. My goodness, that's also strong. That is
it's very
strong. If people want to find you doing stuff on the internet, or if there's anything you want to promote out to the people, what would you like to say?
There is something I want to promote to the people, and this did not come up organically in our conversation about St. Louis, but it is October, and I want to talk about this because the whole world needs to know about this because it's amazing. So for Halloween, and for trick-or-treating in particular, the way that it works in St. Louis is that when you knock on someone's door and they open it and you trick-or-treat, you're required to tell like a one-liner joke in order to get your candy.
You have mentioned this before. It's the best thing.
And it's so good. So you have to like earn your candy. And the jokes are always so very like silly and fun. Like,
why can't a nose be 12 inches long?
Why?
Because then it would be a foot.
Or like, why was the Kleenex dancing?
Because it had a little boogie
in it. Yeah. And so like, some houses will give you better candy if you have a better joke.
Oh, I would totally do that. I feel like I need to move to St. Louis.
Yeah, you do. Some houses like won't give you candy if they can guess your jokes. So you have to like tell them one they've never heard before.
That's a bit too far.
That usually they do that for like the older kids, not like the little bumblebees. But yeah, it's an amazing tradition. And when I went to college, my freshman year, for some reason, we decided to all trick or treat in the local neighborhoods around Rice. And I like walked up to the first house and like started telling a joke because I didn't know that it wasn't a thing elsewhere. And they were like, dude, what are you doing? And I was like, is this not trick-or-treating? What is trick-or-treating to you? You just like go up there and say trick-or-treat. But no, it's the best and I love it. And as you all can tell, I'm a fierce St. Louis promoter. So I just wanted to share that little factoid.
This episode brought to you by the Tourism Board of St. Louis. I mean, that's great. And that should be more of a thing. Maybe even if I don't live in St. Louis, maybe in the future when we're both dads, we can do a destination Halloween and take our kids trick-or-treating.
That sounds amazing.
Oh, man. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you for listening. You can find Johnny on Twitter at Johnny Frall, right?
That's right.
So check him out there if you want jokes that you might hear at a Halloween trick-or-treat front doorstep. But again, thank you, everyone, whether you're Johnny guesting or a listener listening. And until next time, gosh, that Malort is still in my mouth. It's so rough. Until next time, I'll pursue you later. Cool, man. Oh, Lord. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you want to learn more about the show, such as what chapters we're covering in future episodes, you can go to thenewestolympian.com. If you want to support the show, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. You'll get a bunch of bonus content for supporting us on Patreon. And if you want to find us on social media, we're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And also, we are at reddit.com/r/the Newest Olympian. Speaking of that Patreon, I want to give a shout out to our producer level patrons: Lauda Bartova, Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Emma Cooey, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskovchova, Veronica Bartova, Natanya Page, Haley Hastings, Robin Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Tough Bayfong, Moo Productions, Don't Call Me Nymphadora, Olivia Y, Craig McRoberts, Griffin Dork, Taylor Payne, Giselle Salvador, Minka Dreesen, Can't I See We Brain, Matt Barger, Peter Johnson the Twin, Sabrina Balsiger, Mooney B, Boney Pony, Harlan Christ, Heather McMillan, Casey Canales, Polly Burridge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Bridget Lowry, Aiden Lippold, Josh Sayer, Percy Blue, Josh Wilkie, Martin Anvik, Abby Ryan, Josh Clements, Angela MF, Mary Baumgartner, Shannon Yvonne Aguilar, Wise Girl, and Alpacas Are Hope. And if you want to help the show out in a non-monetary way, spreading it via word of mouth is huge. Telling someone about it directly, posting about it on social media, all these things really help. And I would appreciate it very much if you decide to do any of those things. But above all else, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you listen to our next episode where we cover chapters 14 and 15 of The Lightning Thief. And until then, I'll see you later. Hey, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike Schubert. I've never really done ASMR, so I apologize in advance if this is bad. If you're wondering why I'm doing this, it's because with certain podcasting apps, there's been an issue where episodes of The Newest Olympian are getting cut a minute early, so things that are in the credits aren't being heard by everyone across every single platform. I don't really know what's causing this issue, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of it by speaking with my hosting platform to see, hey, what's going on here? So for the past couple of episodes, I've just been putting in a minute of silence at the end of the episodes, but I thought it would be more fun if I did something like this, where if you're on one of those apps where it isn't cutting a minute short, you are still getting some sort of content, and now you are also getting an explanation as to why this is going on. So I just thought that could be fun and also informative, which is, I guess, my brand at this point, ? But I appreciate you listening, and clearly you are a very dedicated listener if you're still listening to this, or you're just in a situation where you can't skip, like maybe you're driving, or you're washing your dishes, or you're commuting or something like that, or you just don't feel like skipping. No matter what brings you here, I'm glad you're here, and I think I've talked for a minute now, so I can probably stop. Okay, goodbye. I hope you have a nice day.